Alright guys, so in this video you will see how can you run a MySQL database on any computer. Yes, this includes both Windows and Mac and obviously also the other system users. So previously in the setup sections I asked you to install Docker. Now is the time when we actually need Docker. So under this video there will be a button with resources and there will be a file to download called Docker Compose with the YAML extension. I would ask you to download this file right now. It's super important as this file contains the definition for the Docker to understand what software we would like to run. It's written it's written using the so-called YAML format, which I'm going to explain next, including what does it all mean for Docker and what would actually happen once we run Docker using this Docker Compose file, and also we'll see how to actually do that to get a MySQL server running. Now, a point to all of you guys who already have a MySQL server running on your computers or a MariaDB server, as it's essentially the same thing, or you might have a MySQL server online, doesn't really matter. So if you already have a MySQL server, you can skip this. So you don't really need to run another MySQL server. You can stick to whatever you have. For all the other guys, let's jump into this file that I asked you to download and see what it's all about and what does it contain. Now, once you download this file, I would also ask you to move it to the root folder of our project. So YAML is a simple format which uses indentations and has a simple format of keys and values related to that keys. Now Docker lets you run software by using things called images, which can be described as small little boxes that contain some software pre-installed. In this case, we've got two. One contains a MariaDB server, which is an open source version of MySQL, and other is a simple PHP script for database management. Now from these images, Docker will create running instances called containers, which only job is to run this single piece of software. In that case, we've got the database and the database management tool. And this file basically describes what images to run, how they should be called, and some additional settings for those containers. Now what's important here is that we will use the password authentication in MySQL. Also, if you are running on M1 Mac, be sure to uncomment this line. If you don't, comment this out. I will leave it as I am using an M1 Mac. Then you might pass some settings using environment variables. Those include the database root password. We will set it to be root. And then we want to expose some ports from the container to our machine, which basically means that in the container, this port is open to connections, and this will also be mapped to our host machine, which means your Windows or Mac or Linux system, and you will be able to connect to this port using any database management tools. Same goes with adminer. Under localhost 8080, we would be able to visit this database management tool. Alright, so save changes here. And then the next step is to make sure that you have Docker desktop running. So if you can confirm Docker desktop is up and running, then go to the terminal and inside the folder of your project where you have just created the file, run Docker Compose app. It might take some time, as if you're running this for the first time, Docker would have to first download MySQL and the other image, only then it will proceed with starting this app. And then in the Docker desktop, you should be seeing the logs. And those two items being green confirm that the containers are running. You can check the status in this column. There is also a reminder about open ports. So now you should be able to visit localhost 8080. The server name should be MySQL, username root, and password, well, whatever you've specified down here. By default, this should be root, so hit login, and you should be seeing a small list of default MySQL databases.